Guys, welcome on in Three Bold Takes. Before we get into this video, which is a hot button topic right now, we are sponsored by SeatGeek. Use our discount code Three Bold Takes to get $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is Three Bold Takes at SeatGeek. Now, we need to get into what just transpired in the college football playoff rankings, where the selection committee, it came down between Bama or SMU for the final spot. Just like last week, it came down to Bama and Miami for the final spot. Last week, they gave Bama the edge over Miami. This week, however, they gave SMU the edge over Bama. So I know we have a lot of thoughts here. I know X and Twitter and the whole college football landscape has thoughts on this. Quinn, I kind of want to hear from you first on what are your initial thoughts and what does this mean going forward for the playoff committee?
So let me start with this. My initial thoughts is I didn't have a preference one way or the other, whether SMU was in or Alabama was in, because I think when you're arguing a seed that low, it, in my opinion, de facto becomes the thing where it's hard to complain that you were left out because you have so many flaws that make it easy to leave you out. To the SMU people saying, "What are our flaws?" Well, your flaw is you never beat a ranked opponent. To the Alabama fans, it's you lost to two terrible teams and missed out on an opportunity to be in Atlanta. Keep in mind, you beat Vandy or Oklahoma. Alabama's in Atlanta, not Georgia. Like, plain and simple. So, and then at that point, I think you're awarded the benefit of the doubt of not being dropped out with a third loss because that third loss would have come in a conference championship game. But that's a whole nother thing. So, what I was interested in going into this weekend was we had two precedents being argued about. What was more important, making a conference title game and upholding the legitimacy of the conference title? And if you want to say, well, what legitimacy is being called into question here, it really boils down to the Indiana situation of it all. You rated Indiana below SMU. You rated Alabama below SMU. SMU plays an extra data point game. It's hard to justify dropping them out below those two teams. um, I personally think when you look at the way the committee ranked, SMU should have the seed that Indiana has.
Yep.
In my mind, and Indiana should have the seed that SMU has, but that was probably done to just avoid like Big Ten versus Big Ten in the first round, if we're being honest. Because you look at the other conference champions, Texas and Penn State were awarded the 5 seed and the 6 seed.
Yeah.
Because they lost in extra games, which I'm okay with that. I know Chase probably isn't given his dislike of Penn State, but like I'm fine with setting the precedent that we're not going to punish you like really hardly at all for losing a conference title game. I'm fine with that precedent being set. It's just that's the precedent we got. Now we got to deal with what is going to be the downside from Greg Sankey and the SEC office, because we all want to see the SEC move to a non-conference schedule and play these big non-conference games. But now they're going to come back at the committee and at ESPN and at other people like that and go, well, why should we play these harder games when strength of schedule isn't taken into account? And if you want to cry to me that strength of schedule is not that big of a deal here, that's not true. Like the gap between these two teams' strength of schedule is pretty big. FPI, strength of record, strength of schedule, it all favors Alabama. So I'm fine with the precedent of you made the conference championship game, and before that, we viewed you as in the field. So we're not going to drop you out of the field because you lost an extra data point game. I'm fine with that decision, but I was intrigued by what decision we were going to get. Now I'm going to be up in arms anytime that this situation rises again if we make a decision opposed to this. I think at this point, the precedent has been set. You're not, if you are in the field going into conference championship week, you cannot drop out. You are locked in.
Yep. Yep.
The only thing you can do is improve your standing.
Yep.
So if you're on the bubble, you could be dropped out if a team is out and wins, a la Clemson.
Yeah.
But you cannot fall out if you're already firmly up here. You're not going to fall far enough to fall out. That's what I saw this weekend. And I want to see that upheld for the rest of the duration of this playoff, with the exception of maybe like some fringe example where two G5 schools could potentially make the playoff one year and then one of them loses their conference title game, that changes a little bit. But if you're one of the P4 teams, if you're ACC, Big 12, SEC, Big 10, and you're in the playoff before your conference title game, you can't leave. That's what I've been told today by the committee.
Yeah, and I I think personally it should be on a case by case basis. SMU's one of those. Indiana's another one. Um, that you not even in the conference championship, but if you're not playing in it, look at the schedule. Like because we knew 2 weeks ago, except for that 12th seed, who was going to be in the college football playoffs. You knew Indiana was in. You knew the top six were in. It just might be, hey, they might be changed around a little bit, but you knew who was in, and you've known for a couple weeks now because of what they've said in the and maybe honestly it's the best in the CFP commissioner's idea to not have a post comp or a, a speech after they do the playoffs like hey this is what we thought of in here then you're just screwed because now everybody's holding you to the fire of doing it this way. Hey, you said you're going to not hurt anybody if they play in the conference championships. Now you can't. You know, if he
Yeah.
doesn't come out and say that, he can do whatever he wants at that point. And nobody's sitting here saying Alabama this, SMU that. But let me get on that tangent. Alabama didn't deserve to be in.
No.
And all the Alabama fans that wanted to say, "Oh, well, we just want schedule." You didn't lose to out of conference opponents. You didn't. You lost to a 6-win Vandy team and a 6-win Oklahoma team. Both of them on the road. Guess what? SMU has lost twice this season. Yes, at home, but both of them are as the home team. My bad. By a combined 6 points to teams that were both in the top 10 at some points this season. Oklahoma and Vandy were both on the road. You lost by 5 at Vandy, and you lost by what, 21 at Oklahoma? You did not deserve to be in this game. And you can schedule Mercer, you can schedule Western Carolina, you can schedule whoever you want to in the 2 games before Auburn or the early end of the season. It doesn't matter. You still have to play an SEC schedule. Guess what? You lost to the SEC. That is the name of the game. You are one of the top teams, top brands, top whatever in the nation for the past 2 decades. You come out this season, there were going to be lumps, there were going to be humps, and you lost the premier conference. That's just what happens, man. If you wanted to go about it, you know, you almost gave a game away to Georgia. You didn't look good in the second half there. And ever since the second half of that Georgia game, you've not been a competent football team. You've decided to show up when and where. The Wisconsin game, there was no problem there. You absolutely handed it to Wisconsin. It's not about out of conference. Don't get on here, well, SMU has an easy, because SMU plays in the ACC. We all know the ACC is probably the weakest conference of the Big Four that we have now. It's just how it is. It's how it's dealt. So you can't get on here and say, well, man, we're just not going to play. We'll just play because I saw some parody account for Alabama. Oh, well, instead of Florida State, we're going to play Prattville High School. Okay, Prattville High School is probably tougher than Florida State was this year. Let's just get on it real quick, guys. And it just annoys the heck out of me that Alabama said our brand, our whatever, deserves to be in the playoffs. And for TV deals, rightfully so. You do. But for a TV deal, you were not a good team this year. All you had to do was either beat Vandy or beat Oklahoma, and you're not talking. Or you beat freaking Tennessee. You know, maybe that changes things. Maybe it does. Look, Texas handled business all year long. They lost to the only 2 opponents. Sorry, 1 opponent twice. Guess what? They're still top 5. Texas has no record whatsoever that says, hey, I need to be a top 5 team in the nation. They have not played a single person that is worthy of saying, I need to be top 5 team in the nation. Alabama has. Alabama beat Georgia. However, Alabama also has 3 losses to teams that Texas, I think, Texas handled.
I didn't play Tennessee, but yeah.
Yeah, they didn't play Tennessee. Vandy and Oklahoma.
Well, they also didn't handle Vandy 3-point.
They won the game is what I'm getting at because if Alabama, if you were sitting here saying that we deserve this, you don't deserve anything. You haven't showed a good product on the field all season long. I've been behind that. I don't think Alabama should have even been sniffing the playoffs after that Oklahoma loss. I think they should have fell down the ladder a whole bunch and shouldn't even been thinking about it. They should have been thinking, hey, we'll go play in the Pop Tart Bowl and we'll be happy. And you know what? In Caleb DeBoer's first season, that's a huge win. The most wins in a first year head coach's tenure at Alabama. And then you're going to make a decent bowl game.
They're probably going to be the Citrus Bowl, I would guess.
You shouldn't have been in the conference championship game. You shouldn't have been thinking about a playoff. Josh, we're going to play for a national championship. This is not Nick Saban. This is not Alabama. I am not. I'm taking this as a faceless resume from Alabama and saying that, hey, this team wasn't good enough. SMU, look, definitely spotting Clemson 14 points to begin last night and nearly making a comeback. SMU lost themselves that game. I think SMU is a good team. Do I think SMU is going to win the national championship? No way. And honestly, the way it's shaking out now, we'll get to it later, but I don't think they have a good road to get there in the first place. I hate it for them. But SMU, I think, had it right, and they did what they needed to do. And as everybody always says, you only can play your schedule. That's what SMU did. SMU won out, and they lost 2 meaningful games. That was it. You know, 2 is better than 3, in my opinion.
Before we, and I know this is going to end up being a really long video because there's a lot to talk about, but I do want to ask you this, Chase, because you just said they have a hard road to get there. I'm going to ask you a question.
Please don't.
I'm going to give you 4 teams. You're going to play one of them on the road. Which one do you want to play? Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas.
If I'm SMU,
if you're literally just your university, which of those 4 schools do you want to play in a road game? Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas.
I'm either going Penn State or Notre Dame.
Okay.
Leaning towards Notre Dame.
Okay. Now let's go to this. You're going to play one of these 4 teams in a neutral site game. Do you want Georgia, Oregon, Arizona State, or Boise State?
Oh, yeah, Boise State for sure.
Okay, their road's Penn State and Boise State. They had the easiest road they could get out of any of the
SMU against Penn State, though. That's where I'm getting at. If this was a totally different, like if it's SMU at Indiana, if it's SMU,
but Indiana's not a team you could have drawn in the first round.
Yeah, that's what
so
I'm saying.
Out of what they could have drawn, they just drew the easiest path, I think. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, we're doing this whole separate video after this. So let's table
Yeah.
that
Go ahead, Brady. I'm
discussion.
sorry. I'm taking up too much.
So I want to say this. I think the committee got the 12 most deserving teams right, and I hate using that term, but that's what the committee has used dating back to 2014. Most deserving. They didn't get the 12 best teams in the. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole of Bama and SMU, that's true. I think Bama is better than SMU. I think South Carolina is better than SMU. Personally, I would probably lean Miami against SMU. However, Miami's lost 2 games. Bama's lost 3 games. South Carolina's lost 3 games. So then the conversation becomes, what do you value? Do you value getting to a conference title in the weakest conference possible? Do you value not playing good competition? Do you value not playing out-of-conference opponents that's worth anything outside of BYU? Let's keep that in mind. SMU did have a chance to play a team that is ranked, and they lost. They had a second opportunity against Clemson, and they lost. So if you were to look at me and you were to put these 2 teams beside each other resume-wise, take the Alabama name off, take the SMU name off, and you look at all of the FPI, strength of record, strength of schedule, game control, all of the metrics, Bama's in over SMU. I think here's the thing. If you was to switch these 2 and you put Bama in SMU shoes and SMU in Bama shoes, Bama is like a top 3 team. Name alone. So I think what you I mean, that's fair. That's fair, but I'm talking resume wise. This isn't even a discussion. So I think what you need to do is you need to take name and brand away and just look at resume. And I think if you do that, I still personally think that Bama should have gotten in over SMU. And I think that Bama has a better chance to be competitive in the playoffs. I think that 9-3 team is way better than this 11-2 or 11-2 SMU squad. But it doesn't matter because this is the same BS the committee does every single year. It's the most deserving teams. You look at, and Saban actually brought this up in the playoff show here, talking about when TCU got in over Alabama, and then they suffered the worst national championship blowout possible, right? I think that's what you're going to get here. You're leaving out teams that can compete for teams that are deserving of the spot. And if that's the way that the committee is going to keep going, fine. That they made that precedent 10 years ago, and it's sustained every single year. Minus
Every year
last
but
year.
one.
Minus last year. And that's what leads me to this point, and the fact that I genuinely thought Alabama was going to get in because of what happened last year. But keep in mind the uproar that happened last year when Alabama got in over Florida State. They took the path of least resistance here, and it's sad. It really is sad that they did that, because I don't think they got the 12 best teams in the playoffs. Now, we'll talk seeding, we'll talk sneak peek in a separate video, but between those two teams, Alabama is the better football team. Now, you crap the bed in 3 games. That's on Kalen DeBoer. That's on Alabama. And the Oklahoma game is what did it, right? If they would have lost, I'm going to say this, if they would have lost to Georgia, they're in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt, they're in the playoffs. But that's the thing, though. They beat Georgia, the SEC champion. And in the past, you've also seen where they value teams as ceiling, right? What is a team's ceiling? SMU's ceiling is a loss to BYU and Clemson. Bama's ceiling is a win against the SEC champion and the number 2 overall seed in the playoffs. I don't know. I'd pick Bama over SMU, but hey, they're the most deserving, so whatever.
Go ahead, Glenn.
I've never had an issue with picking the most deserving over the best. In fact, when we talked about this last year, I picked Florida State to go in because I'm a proponent of the most deserving over the best. What I'm intrigued, though, and I want to ask you guys this and pose this question to you. What kind of repercussions do you think we're going to see because of this? Because here's the truth. Greg Sankey and the SEC have been very vocal, very upset about strength of schedule not mattering. And their primary focus being, and we can say like, oh, you lost to 6-6 Oklahoma, get over it. Let's acknowledge something right now. A 6-6 SEC team with 47 blue chip players on their roster is not the same thing as an 8-4 Big 12 team with 12. Well, and that's across the board. Playing football in the SEC, that's the reality.
Yeah.
And there's also something to be said of the SEC in non-con games against other Power 4 conferences had a winning record over every single conference. And they do it almost every single year to every single conference, year in, year out. So as far as if we want to talk about like adding up here, we're used to seeing a mulligan situation where really a 3-loss SEC team is treated like a 2-loss team from every other conference most of the time. So I'm just interested to see what repercussions come from. I have no issues with SMU being in. That's who I would have put in if I was in charge. But I do think we run the risk of seeing some SEC backlash from this, because the truth of the matter is it's a conference with 16 teams and 13 of them are bowl eligible.
I'm going to say this, and this is actually what's coming up, I feel, and I'm pretty sure may already be in the works. SEC is not going to a 9-game conference schedule. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to require 4 of their teams to be in the playoffs. Like, that's going to be in discussion moving forward, where they're guaranteed 4 spots. They're already guaranteed, I believe it's 3x the money that the ACC and the Big 12 gets for the playoff representation and the TV rights regarding that. So you're going to see the Big 10 and SEC bake into their agreement, we're guaranteed X amount of spots. That will happen.
Well, I think that, but I think a good thing that might come out of this is you stave off the Big 2 of conferences for just a little bit longer. Because if you would have said this year already, hey, we're not taking SMU, we're taking Alabama, then I think it's like, okay, we're going to move into the Big Two conferences because SEC Big Ten means a lot more than ACC Big 12.
I think it's the
But
opposite.
I was about to say, do you stave it
Really?
off or do you accelerate it?
I
Because
think
now
you
you've made them
accelerate it.
mad.
Because I think if you were saying, hey, I'm going to take this ACC team and say, okay, I can stay in the ACC, win these games like I'm supposed to. And because, like, let's be honest, I think Clemson is a 3, 4, or 5 loss team in the SEC.
They're already 0-2.
But Clemson being in the ACC, playing in the conference championship, like Clemson wouldn't see a conference championship in the SEC, I don't think.
Nope.
And
Well, see, that's
winning in
the
the
thing.
ACC, it's like, okay, I'm in, and that's what matters. So that's what I think it holds off maybe a few more years, but I think it's inevitable.
Well, see, that's the thing. If you accelerate it and you're guaranteed 4 or 5 spots per conference in the Big Ten or the SEC, would you rather take your chances to come in the top 5 in the SEC, or would you rather take your chances of having to win a conference, barring an upset, which Clemson did have, by the way, I believe it was to Louisville, who's not ranked. So do you take that, or all we have to do is top 5 in the SEC? And I really, really do think that divisions may be coming back in these conferences, at least the Big Ten and the SEC within the next 5 years.
I'll say this. I still think in that hypothetical scenario, if I'm Clemson, I would rather try to win the ACC than finish in the top 4 in the current look SEC.
Yeah.
But
And
see,
that
if I'm
alone-
thinking,
If we're talking strictly on FPI, that alone proves why there is a fair debate between these two teams. For the people that I've seen online who said this isn't a fair debate, it is a very fair debate. I think it is much easier to win the ACC than to finish top 4 in the SEC.
Yeah.
that's a good point. Good point. Well, guys, that's kind of going to wrap up this video. We've kind of rambled on for a little bit, but this is a very hot topic between Alabama, SMU, SEC, ACC. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Do you guys agree with us? Let us know down below. If you don't, also let us know down below. But leave us a like, subscribe here if you're new. I think 98% of our viewers are not subscribed, so let's change that and flip that around to help the channel out huge, since we are giving you a discount code from SeatGeek to get $20 off your first purchase using our code 3BoldTakes. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you guys. We got more videos coming soon this week, and peace.